Paul Morris.
Yes.
I am so glad to have you here because, we have a funny relationship. We bounce in and out of each other's lives. But what I love about you is you always make me bounce a little higher. After I leave you, I'm always inspired. I'm always like, there's something more I should be thinking about. Something more I should be doing, And this episode, this podcast is called The Circle. And my idea is, I have this tattoo right here. It's a circle. It is truly, I hate when people say change my life, but it has. It is my operating system now. The idea is circle of control. If you focus on the things you can control, your circle grows, your life flourishes, you don't feel the weight of the world. When people focus on things outside the circle, and again, I'm not near smart enough to figure this out. This was a Stoic philosophy 2,000 years old. When you focus outside the circle, it just weighs on you because either you can't affect it or you're not willing to, so why put your energy there?
Yeah.
So my first question to you is, because I respect you so much, you've built businesses. I mean, you got 700 doors in real estate, right out of the gate. You have Keller Williams offices, 7,000 agents or something. You have a New York Times best-selling book, right? Wealth Can't Wait.
Yes,
I did
correct.
read it when it came out, and again, I felt inspired. You've got your podcast, Forward One, which is right. Woo,
yes.
Woo! I love it.
That's my energy
awesome
move.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Proud of you. We have an audience of one, but she is powerful one.
And she's telling me to do my
move?
no like yeah, that's my like, get your energy up, because especially when you're with Jeffrey, you got to match that energy.
No, but you know what? That's why you're good for me, because I always say, like, thank God everyone's not me, or I'd want to kill myself. Like, when I'm with you, it's like I remind myself that, like, power comes, and it's okay. So I like it, your energy. But and what's your financial podcast called?
Radical Wealth Plan.
Radical Wealth. So I mean, and you're a great dad with a 20-something daughter, and you travel, and you're doing yoga poses that just seem like they break my neck. So the question for you is, if this circle of control resonates with you, how does it apply to your ability to do all you've done? Does it resonate at all, or is it like, I have nothing to do with that?
It resonates. It resonates completely, and it's always that circle is something to strive for. One of the things is, if people could have all the energy that they wasted on battles that never happened. Right. If we could have the energy back for all the battles that we've waged in our mind and never happened in real life, it would be a tremendous amount of energy.
Battles that never happened.
Yeah. Because a lot of it's the same thing. It's the concept of I've had thousands of conversations, and some of them have been with other people, and it's just And we it's by nature we live in our own heads, and thank you for saying, I feel inspired that you feel inspired by me, because that feeling is absolutely mutual. And I don't know anybody that lives more in the present than you do, and really working on those things that you can control. So it doesn't surprise me at all. The piece about the circle, it is a practice. So that also, I think part of that practice is a practice of forgiveness, and forgiveness to yourself. If you want to be nice to anybody else, you've got to forgive yourself first.
Talk more about that. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, look, mean people are mean to themselves. I really believe that. And if you can forgive yourself, meaning, every day I set out to do a bunch of things, and every day I fall short of what I set out to do, and I go like, okay, well, sometimes I'll procrastinate 3/4 of a day, and that's hard to swallow. But you just go, hey, restart tomorrow. Let's go. And so that circle, I almost think of it also is the concept of equanimity, which is just a fancy way of staying centered. And when you study the people that are really great at equanimity, they'll tell you, like, actually, I'm not, it only appears that I'm on center. And on center meaning out of reaction, so that whatever happens, you get to respond to it, not react to it. And the people who master equanimity will say, I'm actually off balance a lot more than it seems, but I just get back to balance so much quicker that you haven't noticed that.
Bravo. That's what I say. It's literally a rewiring, because I am too energetic, which comes with being too hot-headed sometimes when you're younger. I always say, if you don't cringe at your former self every year or so, you're not becoming a better person.
Yeah.
Because when I look back, I go, oh my, did I really say that? Be that way with the people I love, with a client? But what happens is, tell me if you believe this, as you rewire your brain, it's exactly what you just said. The snapback happens faster. And
correct.
It's beautiful. There'll be times I'll notice where, right when I'm about to say, I can't believe this person is driving so slowly, I'm like, thank you for reminding me I need to slow down. I love you, whoever you are. Instead of what that,
Absolutely. And the amount, one of the great misperceptions, I think, is we generally overestimate what we should be able to accomplish in a short period of time, and then really underestimate what we can accomplish in a long period of time. So people will say to me, you're so disciplined, and I'm used to 20, 30 years of people telling me that I'm not disciplined. I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. Why? What makes you think I'm disciplined? They're like, well, actually, over the last 3 years, I did more than 600 days of hot yoga. So more than 200 days a year. And I'm like, I guess that does sort of fit. But it's the daily stepping forward, and the daily doing a little better each day. And that doing a little better each day, it works like, if we talk about finances, it works like compounding money, and the things, like you say, that used to, it's embarrassing, the things that we used to do and whatnot. And one of the things I love to do is when we talk about these giant concepts, what can we actually do? Like, what's a good practice? How do we put that into practice? Oh, great. You did a bunch of yoga or whatever. You're the Zen, you're equanimous, if that's the right word. And so one of the things that I learned along the way is to allow yourself to have the broadest range of possibility when you consider something. And so the broadest possibility would be like, okay, so I'm super annoyed with that person. One of the things, because they did something that crossed the boundary for me. And one of the things I could do, for example, is do absolutely nothing. I'm not going to stand up for myself. I'm just going to let it go. It happens again. I'm going to let it go. That's the one far-reaching angle. The next far-reaching angle is, I'm going to. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast or no?
Yeah. I don't swear.
Okay. Okay.
If it feels natural,
I'm going to freaking kill this person.
Right.
Okay. And then when you have a self-concept that would be ashamed of, killing somebody for a misstep or whatever, then you want to shove that down. And so one of the things in practice is just to allow the extremes, right? And the extremes are, ignore it totally or kill the person. Maybe that's too extreme. I can give you a real example that my fiance gave to me, and that was one of the things that I did without boundaries and without self-respect was, do everything for my family and take care of everybody, and give them money if they needed money and whatever. And along the way, I don't want to get too down the bunny trail, but along the way, I realized that somebody else told me, it made me cry actually, that they resent you whether you say yes or no. So I knew they resented me if I said no, but then I realized, like, oh my gosh, actually they do resent me if I say yes. That's a really untenable position. Yeah. So anyway, when my mom passed away at 94, I learned a lot from my fiance whose mom passed away before her. And I learned a lot of helpful things, and I made sure I was there with her. I did all the things so there would be no regrets. And then after that, of course, comes a funeral. And, and now I'm managing the chaos of the siblings and the, just absolute chaos. And I said and so what are the possibilities? The possibilities are let the family run me over again, which is fine. We're grieving. It wouldn't be a bad time to let them run me over. Right. And then the other thing is I'm like, I'm the only one out of all of these people that came and sat with my mom while she passed away. Right. So how about this? I'm not going to go to the funeral, And I just allowed that to be a real possibility. Now, my fiance was like, okay, you are going to go to the funeral. Right.
Venting, but that's a no.
Right. And so that's a pretty extreme example. That's about as extreme because I've never really, I don't really think about killing somebody, but I really thought about not attending my own mom's funeral.
What you're saying is you have to explore the opposite of what you think and the extremes to get to the right place. Like, that's the first thing I usually do when I have an opinion is I go, let me think about all the reasons why my opinion's wrong. Because I may still get back to thinking I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but at least it makes you go from all the way around to the other side of the street.
And that's the ultimate allowance. And so that doesn't mean even when I explore the extremes, I'm exploring them for real. Like, it's a real possibility that I'm not going to attend my mom's funeral. No. But I allow that to I allow the feeling like, wow, that isn't that interesting.
So then what did that do for you? Where did you end up and how was that?
What it did for me was it allowed me to attend and coordinate the funeral and to allow the family to run me over like I knew they were going to do, and for me not to resent it. So it was the same, like the decision, without that decision-making tool, I would have let them run me over and then I would have resented it afterwards. But instead I let them run me over and I was like, I decided to let them run me over.
That's a funny statement, run you over, because jokingly I'd say somebody can't run you over if you don't stand in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the greatest things I ever learned in the 4 Agreements, that book, was I'm not going to take it personally. And I have this thing called the Personal Constitution that I read every morning. And when you drill it into your head that I'm not going to take it personally, it's really never about you anyway.
Yeah.
Like, even and again, none of my business, but most of that stuff, I bet it wasn't even about you. It was about their guilt of not being by her side. It was about their inability to deal with certain things. It was about their shame, maybe, that they're not as successful as you, right? So all of a sudden you realize, it's all about me. And then you realize, no, it's actually not about me at all. It's about them and I'm the target. Right.
And what you said is, what I was giving a presentation, and prior to giving a presentation, someone said, write your 10 life lessons so you can present it to the group. And I struggled to get 10. And then finally, when I was on a roll, I ended up with 15. And one of them is nothing is personal. That is one of them. And it's such a mind-blowing lesson that if you can just do that,
it's such a relief.
Yeah. And the example that I use, because again, it helps me to think in extremes. The example I use is there actually was a particular incident, where I was working with this executive, and he's like, I'm gonna get you. Like, I'm gonna make it my business to get you. And I'm like, it doesn't really get more personal than that. And then I realize, of course, it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Now I may have brought that on, so I'm not dispensing with responsibility for sure.
Well, you're the most self-aware person. And, maybe we bring Sarah over here to confirm it or not. But I think you're one of the most self-aware people I know, because what I always found enjoyable about you is you're always self-deprecating in a funny but like sincere way. Like, you're always looking at what you're missing, and I think that's why you think you didn't get 3/4 of your shit done, because 90% of the population wouldn't even have gotten a quarter of your stuff done that you got done. So you're always, but I think is that a true statement? Does that keep you grounded? Does that help you, or am I missing it?
I was too busy thinking about something else about you, which I really want to say, but give me the short version of that question again. If your editors want to cut that out, that's fine. But I have something important to say about you. Okay. All right. So one of the things that has been the most impactful for me in my life were people who were very important in my eyes or very successful in my eyes who believed in me. And I had like one of my mom's friends, her best friend, but she was like, my mom passed away 3 years ago, I guess, and she was 94. So do the math, she'd be 97. And her best friend was a television producer, very successful television producer, and the only woman in the industry.
Wow.
And she did not suffer fools at all, and she did not pay compliments lightly. And I don't know what it was about what she saw in me. And like, whatever it was, she was like, Paul can do anything. Like, oh, of course he can do that, whatever. And it was so uplifting. It was more inspiring than anything else. Because people will say like, hey, people will have this thing like, I did have a dean in, middle school that like threw me out or tried to throw me out of middle school and said, you'll never amount to anything. And they're like, do you get a lot of, and I'm like, no, I get no juice out of that. Like I could care less,
Yeah.
but somebody who I valued, who thought that like I could do anything was massive. And you are one of the few people on this earth that makes me feel the same way. And I think that, and I just think that it's not personal, and that's why people, I think that's why people love you, because I think that you make people feel good. You figure out what it is and you make them, even if you only spend a little bit of time with them, you make them feel heard and seen in a way that other people don't. And so when I hear you say these things, complimentary things to me, like it feels great, and it is so resonant that and I have no doubt that that's why more people need to hear this podcast, and more people need to interact with you.
I think it comes from, I always start with being determined, not on purpose, but naturally, to find the best in people. Mm-hmm. I've always said, like, everyone I've ever met's a mentor, because maybe it's something I shouldn't do or something I should do, but there's always something to get from everybody. And then ultimately, I'll never not tell the truth. Like, when I don't resonate with somebody, I won't even have a coffee with them, because I don't want to be insincere. Like, I can't do that. If I don't really want to be with you or see value in our interaction, then I won't do it. So, but I've always seen that in you, and you've always left me better than you found me, but I love the way you're always like, you make it seem like it's a whole lot, but then you always get it done.
Yeah, and honestly, from the inside, it doesn't feel that way. I just like. I've
got an interesting question for you. It's going to sound so dumb at face value, but I just read this book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, yeah. I don't really read, by the way, but yeah.
Well, to that point, and that's why I love what you said about your yoga stuff, like applying it. Because I read very little, but the ones I read are highlighted to death, and I reread them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, to me, if you believe it, apply it to your life. Turn it into a Bible for the way you're going to live. If you're not changing anything you do, why bother reading it? There's no prize for reading 1 million books. It's not going to, I'd rather read 2 books and master them in my life than read 100 books that I don't even remember what I read. But the book, Be Careful What You Think, or something like that, is called
Don't Believe Everything You Think. Yeah.
It's a really interesting concept. It says, this was somebody like you, I really wanted your pushback on this. You should never be thinking.
Okay.
When you are at your best, you're doing. When you're in a flow state, you're doing. You are not thinking. So it really talks about, like, have a thought, but that's different than thinking. Meaning, like, that's another way of saying, obviously don't, like you said, have 1,000 conversations, someone with with people. How do you feel? Because I feel like you're a thinker.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about how that's played into your life. Like, do you have challenges with overthinking, not thinking about the right stuff? How does that work for you?
I don't know, other than to say that I definitely think a lot, and then also I also act a lot. I know that I want to analyze, but I also know that there's a time to act, and that at some point in time, zero analysis, you're going to do better by adding some analysis. And then you get to a certain point where more analysis it just becomes more confusing.
Right.
And I listened to this great Jungian psychologist at 59 years old. I finally figured out what that was. So I know that sounds fancy, but yeah. And one of the things that I loved about him was he was so practical, and he's like, I really believe in meditating. I really believe in and he goes, and you know what? Meditate for a certain amount of time and then go out and do stuff in the real world, because the people that just meditate, it creates this like clanging in your brain that just will take you nowhere. So,
Bravo.
One of the things I strive to do is to learn. I want to learn from mistakes I make. I want to learn from mistakes I don't make, and I really want to learn from other people's mistakes. I don't want to be the person that has to have the health crisis in order to, suddenly be nice to people or to appreciate things or whatever. So I look back. I was at a decision making point in my life as to take one job or another, and I remember being like, 49.5, against 50.5, and ultimately I made the right decision. And when I look back at it, I was like, I wish I could find that pros and cons list, because it would have to be the dumbest list that I've ever seen in my whole entire life, because I was working at a big New York law firm, and I got this chance to do something very unique at the Department of Justice. I just wasn't sure whether I should do that or not. I mean, the only thing I needed to do, the pros and cons list didn't need to be there. The thing that I missed out on was, you can always go back to the law firm, but you may never have the chance to do this job again. Right. So there it is. That's the answer.
Steve Shull, who we both know, he said something great to me 15, 20 years ago, right about the time we met, when he was coaching me. He's like, it sounds like you're talking about a bunch of the details. Why don't you make the decision first? And that has stuck with me for 20 years, because I think that's what a lot of people suffer from. It's like, you don't need to figure out all that stuff until you first decide if you're doing it or not. Because that's the first thing. The stuff will get figured out. You will. Most people are capable of figuring out the details. Am I going to move to San Francisco? I will figure out the timing. First, just decide if you're moving. And I thought that was really good. And it's also funny, a joke I always tell. People come to me and they're like, I'm thinking about, getting engaged, marrying this, but I'm not. I go, don't do it.
I love it.
I haven't even told you yet. I go, but you're asking.
Yeah.
If this needs to be like this, like you said, pro-con list, the answer is no. Like for things that big, either you can't live without it, or you shouldn't do it. And that might be a little bit black and white, but I mean, conceptually, like I always...
Well, you've helped me a lot, because I can't live without Sarah Sherman.
There we go. Da-da-da. If the camera was the other way, you'd understand the obvious reason why, in addition to all the other reasons that Paul knew. But yeah, it's like, I think... I think that's what I took away from that book a lot, is that, the thinking. I mean, you said it, you opened the podcast with it. It's like all these conversations in your head will absolutely bury you. And tell me what your thought is on this. Being a realtor, being somebody who just wants to help people in general, all this hesitation over politics, the economy, the Middle East.
Yeah.
My feeling is just simply, whatever 6 things are on your list right now, they're going to go away, and there'll be 6 more. So there'll always be 6 things on the list. So why are you frozen? And again, emotionally, I know why, because we all get affected. It's not really the facts, it's how you're feeling. And that's something I'm passionate about helping people with. But what is your take on that? Like, do you, I mean, you're human, so of course you do, but how do you approach figuring out the difference between what's going on right now versus what makes sense in the big picture?
I mean, it does come back to the thing we talked about early on, and that is, you can't. I think you are wasting time worrying about things that you're not going to change. And so, I work with a psychologist that started, helping us as a therapist, but also, helps in business and that sort of thing. And there's just zero. He just allows zero complaining. It's just like, okay, so what what are you going to do about it? And if the answer is no, you're not going to do anything about it, then it's just like, okay, well then I don't want to hear about it at all.
I love him. People get so mad at me because I always say, you can say it once, Once you said it twice, it's now a story. Now it's just a story that
For
you're
sure.
repeating, and whether it's good or bad, it's a story.
For sure. And part of the answer to what you're saying, or what we were talking about just a little bit ago, is that action is always the antidote. And taking action gives you more information because you get feedback. And thinking does not give you feedback.
That's the second thing I'm stealing from you, Paul. Action is the antidote. I love that.
And one of the metaphors for that is you can't learn how to ride a bicycle in a seminar. So you see all these people in a seminar, and you can learn stuff in a seminar. If you think about it, you can like get a physicist and, like the pedal pressure and all this kind of thing. But it like you have to get out in the field in order to learn how to ride a bicycle. And so taking that action, even if it's the wrong action, you're going to get feedback.
You're getting momentum.
Yeah.
If there's only one thing people take from today's podcast, besides that you're awesome, is that just go do it. Because I have a friend right now who has been to a million seminars and she's worked. It's like, why are you going if you're not gonna so what I'm saying to her on this one that she has finished is I'm gonna say to her, like, in a loving way, so what'd you get from it? And she's gonna tell me, and then I'm gonna say, how are you gonna apply that to your life?
What are you gonna do about it?
What are you doing differently now? And she's gonna freeze. But that's the key.
Well, and one of the few books that I read, but I recommend it all the time, is The War of Art. It's not The Art of War.
Heard of that.
The War of Art. It's a wonderfully thin book. It has 3 sections, and one section is resistance. The other section is breaking through resistance. And by the time you get through the resistance, I'm like, all right, I get it. There's all this resistance. Like, when are you going to give me the answer? And then you get there, and then there's the answer to all these resistances. And then the third one is turning pro. And turning pro is not avoiding resistance. Turning pro is understanding that there will always be resistance, and that once you work through that resistance, that something else is there. So one of the things to do with that, so the therapy thing is Pressfield, who's the author of that book, said one of the most insidious forms of resistance is therapy, because it gives you the illusion that you're actually working on it when you're not working on it. And I believe in therapy because, a third person, listening in and helping or whatever is great. But if you're going to therapy to solve the problem, it's not going to solve the problem. It could be, and some therapists are just sounding boards, which is really bad.
Well, that's why I create a lot of enemies every time I say this. I think I don't understand therapy because it's backwards. What will the rearview mirror do for you? You can't change it. It's done. Starting today, what do you want to do? Just do that.
Right.
Because in theory, I've had a lot of heavy shit in my life, so has everybody else. It's done. It's just a choice of how do you want to move forward today. And again, if somebody's frozen and can't move because of the thing, you've got to get some help to, jumpstart. But to me, it's always about what are you going to do now? Because there is no yesterday. It's gone. And
our therapist coach has a lot of addiction. He has a lot of addiction patients, and that's part of his practice. And so what I always thought therapy was you go in and you talk, and hopefully they guide you a little bit, and then you have an epiphany. An epiphany is like, oh, the light bulb went off. You're like, oh wow, now I see things differently, so I can do things differently. And he's like, well, that's a big waste of time. I'm like, well, wait a second. Wait a second. Like, how else is it supposed to work? And so, for example, if you took addiction and you're like, well, I'm drinking and, I'm doing this, you could lay on the couch, on the therapist's couch, and figure out, my parents were mean to me, or, whatever happened. And, eventually you get this epiphany. The other thing you could do is stop drinking. And if you stop drinking, that epiphany is going to come running at you with a baseball bat. You do not have to lay on the couch for 9 months to maybe get the epiphany. And so that's where the behavioral change, you don't necessarily need the realization to get the behavioral change. Do the behavioral change, and then you get the realization. I was like, wow.
No, really, that's...
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
You know, and I really believe that because it is just I always say, and my wife gets so mad at this, wake up in the morning, if you can't say I love my life, she's like, nobody loves it and says that. I'm like, but the idea is, if you can say I love my life, keep on doing what you're doing. Don't compare myself to Paul because he's 10 times wealthier. Don't compare myself to anybody else. I love my life. Keep doing it. If you don't, what do you want it to look like? There's your therapy. That's the checklist. What do you want to see happening differently than what's happening now? And then what action are you going to take towards those things, right? Like, what's your pushback or agreement on that?
I mean, absolutely. I remember again, it was the prior therapist who I loved because she was like a mom to me, and it was great and it felt good. It didn't move the ball along as fast as I would like. She's a phenomenal woman. I remember during COVID when we had sort of downturn in the market, and I was really worried about all the lease obligations and everything else. And I'm like, you know what? If I come out the other side and I have half of what I have now, that'd be cool.
See, that's a powerful ability to say that. And I really quick, and you can tie it into this. One of the things I loved about you, I'll never forget, and correct me if I got it wrong, but in 2008, 2009, when the world was falling apart, you doubled down on Williams.
Yeah, for sure.
You did the Buffett thing. You ran the opposite way. Everyone was like, ah!
Yeah. And what surprised me was that she said, all the patients that and she has very successful patients. She's like, all the patients that I have, I think you might be the only one that, that said that, because they feel like, oh, we're depressed because we're in this really down spiral, and they need to get back to where they were before. And I'm like, half would be good. Like, I could really do with that.
That's an amazing attitude.
Yeah, and I do wake up in the morning. I wake up in the morning happy. I do.
We'll give Sarah credit for that.
Yeah, but I get the shit kicked out of me a lot during the day. But then
of half the wealth, the comment you just made.
Yeah.
Here's a powerful question for you. You are somebody. You're definitely one of the wealthiest people I know. One of the wealthiest people that will be on this podcast, probably. How do you manage the endless debate of money versus happiness? When is enough, and what drives you to that? Because I wake up and I go, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I could live my life, but nowhere near most people I know. So where, for you, how does that dynamic work? What is, because you're always in pursuit.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is an illusion in this, just period, full stop. And I remember a coaching call that I had with somebody, and it was a realtor that worked with me, but I really liked him. He went out on his own, and he would call me every once in a while, and he was telling me about some financial struggles, and I shared some of my own financial struggles with him. And he was like, "What? I can't believe it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, are you kidding me? Like, what would lead you to believe that, like, that I don't have these financial struggles?" And then, his answer was kind of like, well, you're eating at fancy restaurants, and if we compared travel, then you're 50 times more wealthy, right? And you're enjoying it as you should be.
Right.
So you get to a certain point where more money is not going to bring you more it'll bring you more things, but when you have 3 cars, like the 4th car, I'm sorry, it's just not going to, it's not going to make you a lot more happy. So security is very important to me, and it's security is something that I struggle with still, because I've created an operation that's so large, it has to keep like feeding itself. And I was almost going to I have a friend who has an extremely famous and wealthy dad who's very old, and he's still cranking at it. And I'm like, why the hell is he still cranking at it? And their answer was, feeding the machine, man. Like, the machine is so big that machine just needs to be fed. So one of the things that I'm working on is getting off of the flywheel a little bit and focusing really on the stuff that I love to do. And then if you're doing the stuff you love to do, right? And that's sort of the cliche of when, work and play become, I actually love what I do.
Yeah.
There are parts of it, of course, that I don't love, and that's life, right? So it's like, I had a mentor who was a fabulous professional football player. And he's like, I didn't really like going to the gym, believe it or not. But, when he said yes to being, an NFL all-star, he was saying yes to going to the gym, even though he didn't like it. Yeah, the whole package. Yeah.
Well, and you bring up a good point, right? I mean, obviously, you don't get anywhere without doing the stuff you don't want to do. Anything worthwhile is not comfortable.
Sure.
Fun, so let's wrap up with what I
thought we were just starting, but that's why my podcasts go like 7 hours.
Yeah. Talk for days. Well, what is a great lesson you want people to walk away with from Wealth Can't Wait? So read your book, like the thing they should walk away with. What's the real estate lesson, and what's a general life lesson? What are you? I mean, you have got so much in there. What are a few lessons people can walk with?
So I've already done the. You can't learn how to ride a bicycle in a seminar. And I just recently did. One of the things that I'm doing with my podcast is breaking it into 3 parts and sort of 3 types of people that I'll interview. And one
or the wealth,
the Radical Wealth Plan, and one of them, I call like the Titans, which are, these are billionaires that and I find it interesting, of course, right? And I think people find it interesting. Yeah. And then
top 100 on Apple, right?
Yeah, there you go. I love it. I love that. Should bring more billionaires on the show.
Yes.
And that's interesting to a point. And then there's the people that do this for a living, so they've transitioned out of a regular job into doing this for a living. And then there are the people that have investing in real estate, and that's their thing. So they've gotten off the life flywheel where they're not going to a 9-to-5 job and that sort of thing. And and then there's another group that are the people that do the side hustle. So they're doing other things and they're investing in real estate. And I interviewed a woman, and it took a lot of it takes a lot of gumption, to be in the financial position that she was in. She was a journalist. She had just gotten a divorce, and invest in a piece of property. And she invested in a piece of property. She made a bunch of mistakes. But she was willing to get out there and do that. And she was able to sell the place after putting money, time, energy, or whatever, like squeaking out with $5 of profit after like a year and a half. But while she was doing it, she was going like, well, why isn't my place renting, it's got the same footprint, but the place down the street, is renting for all this money and mine is not. And, she just learning. And then when she finally found one that had the bones of what she wanted, that's when she was like, okay, sell, even though I'm going to make, $4 from all of this work. And then I'm going to go into that other one and do it. And now she has she only has 2 properties, but they're high-end properties.
The lesson is don't be afraid to get out when it's wrong, or
the lesson there is you have to get in the game in order to learn the game.
There you go, so riding the bike, yeah.
Yeah, you have to. And then by doing that, she was then able to, she now has 2 properties and they fund her whole life.
Wow.
That's it. So the rental income is enough for her to be a journalist and not have to worry about it. And so you just have to get in the game. The other thing, which is such a massive misconception. So this is the sort of real estate lesson.
Right.
The real estate lesson. It absolutely amazes me that people, it's the question I get asked the most often, and so therefore I get irritated having answered it 7,000 times. And that is now a good time to invest. And it just,
we love that as a realtor.
It makes me crazy. And so I'll give you one short anecdote. I'm in the locker room of the yoga studio, and this guy said, "Oh, I know you're in real estate, and I have this realtor, and she told me I should buy this investment property, and I talked to my CPA. He told me not to do it. Like, what do you think about the market today?" And I said, "Who's your realtor?" And it just so happens that the realtor worked for me.
Oh,
and it just so happens that the realtor was like amazing. And so I'm like, okay, so you have the right realtor. Okay, that's for sure. Let's talk about the CPA. why did he tell you that it was a bad, because I don't know if it's a good deal or not. Why did he tell you it was a bad deal? He said, well, he said it's the wrong time to invest. And I said, okay, let me tell you, I haven't seen the property. I know nothing about it. I'm telling you, your CPA is giving you terrible advice, guaranteed. And he's like, why is that? I go, well, because the deal is about the deal. It's not about the time of the market. So what does everybody want the market to be like booming? When the market's booming, you can't buy anything, and it becomes very, very hard to buy something. And then when the market's in the tank, nobody wants to buy anything. And so you and I, we've been in the business long enough where we've seen people make terrible buys in what is called a great market. And likewise great buys, and then also great buys in a terrible market. Yeah. And I would argue that a market that is challenged is a market that brings a lot more opportunity. And the really smart investors make all their money or the majority of their money when the market is looking grim, because it really is all about the deal. So there is no economic indicator. There is no interest rate. There is no tariff. There is no law that's going to be greater than the fundamentals of the particular deal that you're in.
If people walk away with that, you just made them a fortune. I finally learned as a realtor to not sell, to not convince, to just stay in the question of what matters to them. But one of my favorite questions to ask with that person is, I would have just said to them, how will you know when it is the right time?
Yeah, I mean...
Or how will your CPA know? And they can never answer it, because the reality is they're just doing this emotional thing because... There are, what is the defining moment going to be?
Yeah,
it's not, like you said, the deal in front of you.
And here's another. This is going to be like everybody can write. You're in real estate, so this is a bullshit answer. And so the bullshit answer is this: if you're not paying full commission, you're getting a shitty deal. Period. And I own a brokerage. I can do my own deals. But I can have my manager or somebody really smart in my office do the deal for me as a favor for free. And if it's a great deal, if it's a great deal, that realtor is going to buy the deal themselves. But guess what? They're not going to have the money to do that. So then they're going to go to somebody who they know will close, number one, and number two is not going to chisel them on right? Because even a realtor in my office that loves me, right? They do this for a living. Yeah. They're going to bring a deal. If they have a great deal, they're not going to bring that deal to me if they think that I'm going to pay them half the commission if they take it to a stranger. So I want a deal that's so good that I'm delighted to pay a full commission.
But again,
period.
That's the brilliance of you, because you're looking at the long, big picture. Like, you're not somebody just like in 08 when you were doubling down. You're not making decisions based on a short runway. You're making decisions based on like what we don't even know yet. Yeah. And then those costs shrink to nothing, I always jokingly say to clients who don't want to be exclusive, we're just going to work with everyone. I said, so let me get this right. Do you think when the great deal comes, agents are going to bring it to the people who are not committed to them, or their committed clients?
Yeah.
I go,
for sure.
Your third choice. I go, first, I'm going to decide if I want to buy it. Second, I'm going to bring it to Paul. And if nobody wants it, I will call you.
Sure, absolutely.
That's what's so funny, and it sounds terrible, but that's just the way it works.
And also the we're flooded out with people that want quote a steal, and it's like most of the property that I have purchased has been on the market, and when a property is on the market and I get that property, it means that I was willing to pay $1 more than anyone else on the planet, which by definition is overpaying.
Well, right? I just tell people, I go, how we can make sure you don't overpay? And they're like, how? I go, let's find a property nobody else wants. Yeah. Because that's it. I mean, if it's totally undesirable, we can negotiate a lot, and guess what? It'll be worth that much less when you go to sell it. Yeah. Paul, you are the best, man. You really are. And
you're an absolute inspiration for sure. I really
Let's make sure we don't edit that out. Like, get that.
It is so true. And the more people that hear your podcast and get your energy, it improves the world.
That's my goal, man.
Yeah.
I love you, brother.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
man. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Good stuff.
Hey.